And now, Giant Sports Talk Live. Here are your hosts, Eric and Glenn.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Giant Sports Talk Live. And we got a special edition for the postgame, guys. We'll talk all the postgame stuff here in a little bit later. But first, without further ado, guys, we got a special guest, former assistant GM to the San Francisco Giants and former GM to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Ned Colletti joins the show. Ned, thank you again for giving some time for us to talk some baseball.
You got it. I love the old pictures and the logos you showed on your open. Good stuff.
Thank you. I try to link the history when it was the logo, how it was in the beginning, all the way to how it is today. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's get straight into it. We're about 3 weeks ago. You were at the induction to Jeff Kent at the for him to get inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I tell you what, that's quite the moment there, because remember Brian Sabean, he caught some flack for trading for Jeff Kent. Lo and behold, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, I just love how these kind of stories will line up in some way. And there you go. Brian had to go out there and say, I'm not an idiot in making this trade. I mean, it's incredible. And I want to talk about it because Jeff Kent's speech was so great. I really enjoyed his speech. And he specifically mentioned you and Brian in it. And the thing that I loved about it, he talked about your role specifically was you watched how he prepared and how he competed. And I think that's important. And he specifically said it had more than just what the numbers were. Can you kind of elaborate what Jeff Kent was talking about when you guys were looking at Jeff Kent?
Well, I worked for Dallas Green. My first Boston baseball was Dallas Green. And, we have to go back to the place and time in the fall of 1996, a long time ago now. And Brian had just taken over as a GM, and I had just been elevated to assistant GM. And we were at the GM meetings in Arizona. And, we had to make a decision on Matt Williams or Barry Bonds. Payroll wise, we didn't have what I still refer to as the new ballpark. That was still a dream. Wasn't even, I don't think, voted in yet, and all that. So we just had to make that decision. And so we made a decision to move Matty, who was a great player and obviously a fan favorite, and to keep Barry. And as we got close to that deal with Cleveland, you have to do your due diligence. And I called Dallas Green, who had managed Jeff in New York. And having known Dallas and having worked for him, I knew how he viewed players. And I knew that he was going to be more critical than praiseworthy. And when I called him on Jeff and said, we have a chance to acquire this player, he was so enthusiastic about how hard Jeff played and how he was really one of the most win-oriented players Dallas had been around. And Dallas managed the Phillies in 1980, who won the World Series. So, he knew who could and who couldn't. And so that gave us a little bit more confidence to move forward and to trade the fan favorite. And it wasn't just Jeff. We received Jose Vizcaino in the deal, who I had traded for one of my Cub days. And I actually just saw Jose too in Cooperstown, which was great. And Joe Roa, who was kind of a 4A pitcher, and Julian Tavares, who could pitch about 80 games a year. So we needed to rebuild the club, and we were obviously trading a fan favorite like Matt, and third baseman, all-star third baseman, power hitter, middle of your lineup bat. But all we really knew about Jeff was that he was going to play hard, and he was really about a 20-80 guy at that point. 20 homers, 80 RBIs was probably a good season for him. And we acquired him. And, Dallas said, look, he's not going to throw team parties. He's not going to put his arm around everybody and be a vocal leader. but you will never, ever doubt the effort. You will never, ever doubt the preparation. And if you're looking for somebody who can figure out ways to win games, he's the guy. So we made that deal. And that is exactly who Jeff Kent was as a player. He played hard. He played hard every day. One of the questions you ask yourself whenever you're making a deal or whenever you're putting a team together, it's a pretty basic question. It goes for all walks of life, really. Do you trust the person? Do you trust that you're going to get the effort? Do you trust that you're going to get the everything they've got to give, whether it's a friendship, a family member, or business associate, or baseball player? And I was with Jeff, I think maybe 6, 7 years in the Bay Area, and then 3 of his 4 years in Los Angeles. And I can easily say there was not one day that I didn't trust the effort, and that whatever he had to give, he was going to give. I'll take you back to really what I think is a pivotal moment in his career and a pivotal moment for the Giants franchise. Was in the year 2000. It was late June. I think we had a day-night doubleheader at the new ballpark then. It was a few months old. Was still Pac Bell at that time. And Jeff came in the morning. We had a day game and then an intermission, long intermission, a night game scheduled, I think. I'm going off memory here, so hopefully I'm still correct with it. But he came in sick. And Dusty says, you're not playing today. And he says, no, I'm playing today. And our trainer, Stan Conti, gave him IVs. And next thing you know, he played both games in a doubleheader. And if you remember back in that season, that is the year he won the MVP. And we were about 500 at this juncture in the season. And from that day on, we went on this great
roll.
And it was a lot to do with certainly Barry and everybody else on the club, but also I think it was a huge step for Jeff that year. And the day he was named the MVP, and we know that there was a great rivalry, great respect, but great rivalry between Barry and Jeff. And the day he won the MVP, Brian and I looked at each other and thought, this is pretty good for the organization here, because now number 25 is going to be even more in tune with trying to win another MVP, because Jeff had kind of broken his streak. Barry, I think has more MVPs than anybody in the history of the sport. But Jeff, got into that one, and that was a key moment for the franchise and also for his career.
And it's funny because in your book, I love your book. If you guys don't know about it, go find it. Amazon. The Big Chair, fantastic book. And you talk about that with Barry, a little bit with Barry and Ken, where you talk about iron sharpens iron. And I think you're alluding to that. And that's fantastic. I love hearing about that stuff. And there's also another link also in the book. You talk about kind of one of your first steps to get the GM job in Los Angeles was a phone call from Jeff Kent. So I find, I found that very interesting how all these things kind of fell into place, when we're talking about Jeff Kent and getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, which was fantastic. Talk a little bit about that. There was a phone call you received from Jeff Kent.
Yeah, he wanted to know if I'd have interest in the LA job. He had talked to their leadership, and he said my name had come up, and he wanted to know if he should further it or let it rest. I says, no, I'm always. I love the Giants, and I was, Peter McGowan was our primary owner then, and of course Larry was in a major role, and Sabes, and I have, and many others, and it was a great time in my career, a pivotal time in my career, but I owed it to my career and my family, to do due diligence, and if there was a team with an interest, to follow through on it, and so that I did, and I left San Francisco in November of 2005 and GM'd through the 2014 season, and did some TV for him for a few years, and kind of shut it down 2 or 3 years ago. I needed, believe it or not, guys, I needed a summer off. I hadn't had a summer off since the Beatles broke up, so it was time to to get a little bit more life and a little bit less schedule.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Lou, you have any questions? Maybe we'll get a little bit into some, what it's like being a GM. Maybe in some difficult times. What do you got, Lou?
First of all, Ned, you've been in the business 50 years. So first of all, congratulations. I know you're doing, other stuff now, but to be in anything for 50 years, it shows you what a quality type of person you are. So congratulations there. Second of all, you went from being one of the faces of the Giants to go to the heated Dodgers, which again is a big step, but it's a career move and you had to do it. But will you sort of describe how it was? The Dodgers back then were sort of in disarray, right? And I sort of get that feel right now of the Giants where, we might be good in 5 years, but what do we do from now to 2030? We put somebody in charge who had no experience at all. We have a GM who admits he's still learning on the job and it's his second year. So what I really wanted to ask you is, I think what sort of made your job before you went to the Dodgers is you and Brian, as I've learned in the past, used to always take walks together, right? You would always try to figure out what could we do to make the team better, right? And this isn't a point where the Giants didn't really have much money then, right? You did whatever it could to improve. So my thing now with the new thing of president of baseball operations, I think it started when Freeman went to the Dodgers like in 2010, because I never heard of that terminology. But I think one of the biggest problems is with Buster and Manias is they don't do what you guys did. And my question is, does a baseball of operations talk to the general manager every day? Because it's sort of weird when they do these interviews. I sort of get the feeling they don't. And second of all, do you have any advice for fans, since you went to the Dodgers where they needed you to improve the team and they were sort of stuck, for being a Giants season ticket holder where it's gone up 7% the last 3 years. We haven't been more than 500. It's sort of frustrating. Is there hope? And my other question is, did the Giants really make a mistake with hiring someone with no experience? Because obviously the Dodgers got you where you had already proven yourself as an assistant GM. Sorry, that's a few questions there, Ned. I apologize.
That's about a dozen right there.
Sorry.
First off, I don't know anybody's relationship in any front office and how they deal on a daily basis. I don't have any idea. The team that I inherited in LA had lost 91 games the year before. Dodgers were 71-91. They'd won one playoff game, I think, since 1988, which had been, how many years would that have been? It would have been like 17 years or something. So that's what I was walking into. And if you think back to when Brian became the GM after the 96 season, and I moved up a spot, we had the same thing there too.
Yeah.
We were, that team, I think that maybe the 2 years before there were 90 plus losses. Again, I could be off, but I think the 95 and 96 Giants were both over 90 loss teams. So I had the experience of trying to change something quick. And I used that experience in LA, and we went from the team I inherited was 71-91, and we won 88 games the next year. We went from 71 to 88. And, I did it with by going after players who I knew would compete and signed them really to short-term deals. Kenny Lofton, a one-year deal. Nomar Garciaparra, who was coming back home, a one-year deal. The great Giant, Billy Miller, who went on to a great career, obviously in Boston and Chicago after he left the Giants, brought him in because I knew his style and his relentless approach. And Rafael Furcal was a young free agent, signed him to a 3-year deal. So, I went with guys who, some of them I knew. I knew Billy, I knew Kenny. I didn't know Nomar, I didn't know Rafael, but I knew enough about how they played to know that, hey, these guys are going to put it out there every day.
Gamers.
And yeah, as Dallas Green would say, they were gamers, right? And so, we did that, and we changed it in a hurry. We went from 71 to 88, and I think I was there for 9 years. I think we went our ownership situation was in flux. We had a bankruptcy, we had a divorce, we had all sorts of different things. But I think we went to the LCS 2 or 3 times, and went to the playoffs 5, almost went 6 out of 9, which isn't terrible. Some teams haven't been in 5 or 6 postseasons in the last 35 years. So, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from my San Francisco experience, and I used it in LA. And I think that it's tough in today's market to lose a lot of games and continue to have your fan base just say, okay, we're cool with that. There's so many more things to do. Obviously, people's economic situations are always one of the first questions people will ask as they're thinking about what they're going to do with their free time. So I think you kind of have to middle it, and you have to really get players that are going to have talent, have been on winning teams, maybe not championship teams, but have been winning teams. I knew Kenny Lofton from the 02 Giants. We had acquired him late in that year, and I knew his hunger to compete. And he was near the end of his career, but I also knew that this guy was going to play. So, and Nomar was coming home, one of the great right-handed hitters of the last 30 years. So we did that, and then we waited and we nurtured, some of our young players. My first trade was with Oakland for Andre Ethier. So he joined that group. He joined some of our younger players like Russell Martin, who was a very good catcher prospect coming up, Matt Kemp, James Loney, Chad Billingsley. We also signed a reliever, a closer who nobody knew about from Japan, Takashi Saito. We signed him to a $500,000 minor league contract. When I got there, Eric Gagne, who had a tremendous run with LA, and obviously we had seen him a lot, play in LA when I was in San Francisco, and knew his talent level, but he wasn't healthy. I think he pitched 2 innings during my tenure there. And so we needed, you have to be able to close games. You can't close games, you got no chance. And after a while, you lose. Your team starts to fray a little bit when you can't finish off games. And Saito stepped in. He was not a big name Japanese free agent. He wasn't Otani or Kuroda or anybody that had a lot of applause attached to his name and a big record. But we had we had scouts there, and then they convinced me that this kid had the courage to do it. And I'm not sure how many games he saved that year, but he saved our season. And so we did it like that, and we waited for the younger guys to kind of matriculate into the situation and become everyday players. So that's how we did it. It's not easy to do. And in the meantime, you got to really draft and develop. There's no other way to really do it. If you want to be as good as you can as soon as you can, you're going to have to get people that want to come and play for you. And they'll take a year. They'll take 2 years. They'll take something short, and they'll come to prove their value. Maybe they're players that are 3/4 of the way through their career, or even more deeper into their career, but they love to play and they want to compete. But you got to draft and develop. If you can't draft and develop, you're always going to be at best in the middle, because you can't afford to continually go out and bring in free agents. It just doesn't work. The great Yankee franchise that was, the evil empire before the Dodgers were the evil empire. They've won maybe 1 World Series in the last 20 years. That could be right. So it's not all about the money you spend. You can't always do it that way, but you need to draft and develop your own. And that's, you've got to have good people. And, and I think one of the most important things for any leader in any sports organization, probably maybe in business too, if I think about it, is to really know your people. And to really know, especially if you're in the sports business, your prospects, to really know what they're going to be able to do. And, if you're a struggling franchise, you can't be trading guys that turn out to be really good. There's not enough good players to go around, let alone trading somebody you've drafted and developed. And you can't think somebody is who they're not. And keep hanging on to hope. Because that's not going to work. You have to have quality, but knowing your system and knowing your player development people and your scouts and how they work, how they think, is one of the most important aspects of the job, I think. I found, I grew up, and Sabes, I think also, we both grew up kind of the same way. Me in Chicago, him in New Hampshire. We didn't grow up with affluence. We grew up where we had to figure things out every day. We had to figure out almost survival every day financially. And we learned people, and we learned who we could trust, and we scouted everybody. And I don't want to speak for Brian. I'll just say myself, I had to scout everybody, not just players on the opposing team, but everybody that I knew in front offices, ownership, agents. That takes a lot of time and effort, and you have to have conversations with people all the time to figure it out. I can't tell you how much time I spent just learning who the people are and how determined they are or how talented they are. One of the best is Jeremy Shelley, who's still there.
Yep.
I tried to get him into LA, and Sabes, when I called for permission, Sabes was kind of taken aback that I'd asked. And he called me back and said, "No, I can't do that." And Jeremy's one of the best people I've ever been around. Knowledgeable, honorable. You trust him with everything every day. And he's grown and has had a great career with 3 World Series rings and a 4th National League Championship ring. But that's what I mean. You have to know all your people, and really be honest with your own evaluation. And sometimes you have to give people an opportunity that hasn't had one. Just because they haven't had one doesn't mean they're not qualified. It just means they haven't had one. And sometimes you got to stick your neck out and do that, whether it's a player or somebody in the front office. But yeah, I mean, Jeremy's one of probably my top 5 people in the game for 40. I've been in the NHL for 8 or 9. One of the top people, and it's shown by his work. But that's I'm not trying to go on and on about Jeremy here, but you have to scout your people. I mean, who would have thought this back in '96 and '97? But that's how you have to do it. So, anyway.
Ned, you just answered the question I was going to ask you, because it's funny. Jeff Kent said in his speech as well, talking specifically about you and Brian, you guys knew how to judge talent and build culture. And you just talked about it, because I was going to ask you, the GM, it's a sexy thing about the trades and the off season. That's what everyone wants to hear about. But you kind of have to get into the weeds, so to speak, in knowing the people. And you said it exactly. I was going to ask you, what was it like for a GM to go out there and hire coaches and front office people and scouts? Because that's where things start happening, so that you could go out there and get those talented players, whether it's drafting to developing or trading or maybe doing free agency. So I appreciate, that's absolutely fantastic. Because can you maybe speak a little bit more if the GM, it just doesn't stop with the players, correct? It's the buck stops with you for everything associated with baseball operations.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. It's they're massive jobs, and you don't have. I think if you're really doing the job, I don't know that you ever have a day in the year you're not thinking about it. I think you think about it every single day, and you're just you're saturated by it. And again, I think every day you have a chance to learn something. And I think whether it's about a player or about a person, I mean, players are people too. I shouldn't say it that way,
Right.
but whether it's, a non-player or a player or anybody, if you're paying attention to the detail of life, you're learning every day. And that's how it helps you make your decisions. And, I think one of the aspects of the 90s Giants, the second half of that decade, where we were a very small organization, baseball ops wise, probably the entire organization, but particularly baseball operations wise. We didn't have a major staff. We had hardworking people that were honorable people. We had the late Dick Tidrow, who was terrific, Sabes, and myself. They were like the big three in the baseball operations, and younger executives like a Bobby Evans, like a Jeremy, who was behind Bobby Evans in the experience level, and some interns. We didn't have a massive staff. We probably had far less. When I went to LA, I was taken aback by how many people worked in baseball ops. Like, I don't think we had that many people if we added them all up, in all the years I was in the Bay Area. And so it was important that we cared about everybody and that we gave opportunity, because we're a small staff. Our younger executives got more experience, got to do more things. And I think when you work in a business that you're probably always going to be underpaid compared to those you go to college with that are in a business outside of something that's got as much allure as sports does. And so you pay a bit of a price for supply and demand, a lot of demand, not much supply. So it's important that your compensation is more than just what shows up in the checkbook. Okay. It's also in your opportunity to grow in the industry and to be a part of it and to have the information and to be at the table when decisions are made. So I think, and I don't know how the younger guys, I mean, they're older guys now. I don't know how they would feel about that group, but, as I look back on it, that was one of the keys to our culture, because people realized that we weren't a big group. They were going to get opportunity. I mean, Dick Tidrow ran amateur scouting and player development. How many people are doing that? There's probably 3 or 4 people running amateur most places, and who knows how many leading player development, from an analytical perspective, from a player perspective. I mean, who knows? But anyway, we had a very small, tight group that grew up together. I also think, I had a wonderful time in Cooperstown with the Giants organization. They were tremendous to me, have been for years, even when we competed against each other. So much respect and just wonderful memories with them. But, there were a lot of front office employees that were in Cooperstown. And, we're sitting around talking late nights and this and that. And it was, and it was, I just probably placed it in my mind, as you open the show with the different logos and you showed Candlestick Park. Candlestick Park could be a tough place, not just for the opposition, but for anybody. And, we didn't know. And I hesitated coming to San Francisco because I didn't know how long the franchise was going to be there. People who are younger listening to this part of the show must think that I'm from the prehistoric days. But there was a point in time where the franchise almost moved twice.
Yeah.
Once to Toronto, once to Tampa.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
And it was the next year that they came calling for me. So I'm thinking, well, where am I going to be working? And the strike in '94 had really did a lot of damage to the fan base in the Bay Area. So, but we survived it. We survived Candlestick, and ownership. And I think the '97 team were ownership without a doubt. But, to support ownership, the 97 team, as exciting as it was, and a playoff team after losing 90-some games the years before, we all grew from that experience. We grew from the adversity we had been through, being at the stick with 7,000 people there, or whatever, the winds howling. I mean, you guys know the stories, but I think we all grew from that. And in talking to some of the people in Cooperstown who have been there for a long time, when we bring up Candlestick, we all kind of smile. But we as an organization, you built this culture of, hey, we can withstand anything. And our guys got to the point that even though the Dodgers had a payroll probably twice as much as us, or a lot more of us, if it wasn't exactly twice, our guys loved playing them. They couldn't wait to play them. We were playing in Candlestick Park. They were playing in Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine. They have beaches people go to in bathing suits. We have beaches people go to with coats on. I mean, it's just two different places, right?
Right.
Our guys loved playing them, and I think that probably. And I've never asked them, the McCord ownership why I was on their list. I'm sure Jeff had some influence to it, perhaps, but. And maybe they looked and saw that year after year we were finishing ahead of them, and their payroll was always higher, but we just figured out who to get. Yep. And who would play and who would take the Candlestick weather and conditions, and as difficult as it was sometimes, use it to our advantage. And I think
Eric, I just want to say two things. Ned, you got to remember the late, great Roger Craig. He said it's our Candlestick. He used it to our advantage.
Yes.
Was spectacular. And I got to give Peter a lot of credit. What he did, when a lot of people might not forget, and I survived all those games, is, you had the Dodgers, but let's make Candlestick even better. We went from so many night games to day games. And if you remember, we didn't have left field bleachers. That was all Peter's idea, to bring it in, to make it more family friendly. And let me tell you something. I've been to a lot of games at Candlestick. There was nothing like 64,000 screaming maniacs.
Oh, gosh.
That stadium was rocking. Now, I was there for the earthquake, but I was at games when the Dodgers came to town. It was an experience, and there was nothing like it with that packed house.
You are right on.
And the greatest thing, and who really made everything better, was when Tommy would come in. Because as you remember, at Candlestick, the Dodgers would always be at third base, and Tommy was always the last player, delayed usually first pitch, because he made sure the fans knew he was there. And it was just so much excitement. But I think people forget it was our Candlestick. It was our park. I mean, and I thought also it was great when you guys came in is you had a lot of competition with the Niners. And,
yes.
You guys made it a Giants town, which I got to commend you guys. And, again, we almost sold twice. It's, my family's been involved with tickets since New York. And, we had tickets at Candlestick. Now we have tickets at Oracle. And, as I said, one of my last things, when the Giants won in 2010, I was with 5 buddies, and we were all in tears because we always said before we die, we just want to see one World Series. Yep. We were close. We didn't get it. Then we got 3 in 5 years. So, just speaking of that, I mean, again, they're not with us anymore, but, I think Peter deserved a lot of credit for keeping us here.
No doubt.
Making Candlestick that. So I wanted to bring that up. Sorry, Eric. I just wanted
to. You're right on. I turned the Giants down. I think maybe I said that already tonight, but I turned them down a couple times when they offered me the job. And Brian convinced me to come out and try it. And so I did it. And he and I, neither one of us, there's a lot of people in any business, I guess, that are always looking for their next job while they've got one. And always, kind of patting everybody on the back in meetings and stuff to ingratiate themselves. that wasn't Brian's style. That wasn't my style. So we knew of each other, but we had never spent time at GM meetings, trying to get jobs besides the one we had, him with the Yankees, me at the Cubs. And, we hit it off really immediately and
Wow.
worked very, very closely. And I was there 11 years with him. And it was, when I think back to those days and the Candlestick offices and Peter and Larry and the ownership group that kept the franchise there, I think a year before I got there, maybe in 93, maybe 2 years before I got there, that they rallied and kept the franchise in the Bay Area, Harmon Burns and Sue Burns and
Burns, yeah.
and Larry Nibby and Alan Byer and Mr. and Mrs. Sokoloff and on, just the Nibbies, just over and over again. These people were such good people and are still good people. And it was such an uphill battle for everybody. But we never stopped. I'm not just talking about the baseball team. I'm talking about the entire organization, including the ownership. We never stopped, and we just kept going and going and going. And little by little, trying to go uphill on an icy road, we just kept going. And it was probably the most satisfying segment of my career. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go out there. I didn't know how long I'd be there. I didn't know how long the franchise would be there. And little by little, it's like Tony Bennett sang the song, you leave your heart in San Francisco. It became that type of thing. And, when Peter passed away, they invited me up to his memorial. And, I was so sad that he was gone, but so grateful I had a chance to work for him. And the whole Dodger experience and him giving me permission finally, and I mean that's a story into itself. But those days were so special to my career. Every day leads to today in all our lives, and that period of time, I'm so grateful that I had a chance to work there at both stadiums. I think maybe 5 or 6 in Candlestick and 5 or 6 in Pac Bell, SBC, and AT&T. I'm just grateful for that part of my life, and because of a lot of the people we're talking about. And I'm glad you brought Peter up because key person, So yeah, really one of the best times of my career.
That's incredible. And it's funny because you're talking about you guys kept going. Baseball in general, it's huge right now, right? I mean, baseball has always been huge to a certain extent, but the popularity is it's growing by leaps and bounds. Last year's playoffs, were just fantastic.
Yep.
Leads into this year. This year's playoffs are going to be fantastic. And, we got that looming cloud of the CBA, and it's just, you've witnessed it while you were in baseball in 94 where they had some work stoppage. What would you do? Is there anything I don't know if you're not in the position, but is there any suggestion you could to have where baseball and the players union could kind of get a little bit harmonious in a way, maybe try to find the middle ground? I don't know. It seems I would hate to see baseball just
been through probably 7 or 8 of these. I don't think they're going to miss a season.
Okay.
They may miss a couple games, but I don't even know if they'll miss that. The financial aspect of the sport is flourished on both the player end and the ownership end. And I don't see anybody drawing a line in the sand that they won't compromise in at the end of the day. I think both sides know how deep in the March they have to get to have a full season. I think they both know that. I think that you're going to hear rancor all the time, but go back and look look through history. You always hear it.
Yeah, true.
So I mean, that's what both sides need to do. That's how they both approach it. They can't be soft now. Later on, there'll be compromise. But are the players going to accept the cap? That's the big question.
Right.
I don't know that they'll ever accept the cap. Do the owners need a cap? I don't know if the owners need a cap. Do they maybe have to put a ceiling on deferred comp? Something like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into the fine print of the deal. I just think that both sides know that the sport is very healthy in a lot of ways. Competitive balance, a mess. Mm-hmm. That is a mess. But they've got to figure out a way to draw that closer, which is part of the reason the '94 World Series got canceled.
Yeah,
because of competitive balance, and here we are now with a greater divide than we probably had then. And so, it's still an issue. And the question is, well, do you penalize the teams that are winning and making a lot of revenue and funneling it back into their product? Do you penalize them to keep the sport vibrant in all 30 franchises? I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answers to all of that. That's probably a 10-hour show, not a 30-hour show.
That's true.
But yeah, I think something that saved the game was the pitch clock, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's something as
simple. Something as simple as that.
I can't tell you how many. I probably would have stayed doing TV, but I got tired. I'm doing Dodger games, which is great. They win. Almost 70% of them. But you get to the sixth inning, and then the other team's got no pitching, and it's going to take you another hour and a half to get through the last couple of innings. But I think that's really helped the game. You're right about the postseason last year. I think it was great. I think people who didn't have an interest suddenly had an interest.
Right.
So, but you got to keep going. So. I think that I'll go back in general to kind of go to your point one more time, and we'll talk about the big market Dodgers, and we'll talk about the smaller market but with a better record as of today, the Milwaukee Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective is the Dodgers can afford to make a mistake.
Yes.
The Brewers can't make a mistake. The Arizona Diamondbacks, not much different than the Brewers as far as payroll probably and market and things like that. Very, very good franchise. Mike Hazen does great work there. They signed, and I won't bring up the name of the player, but they signed a pitcher not too long ago to the contract that was the biggest contract in the history of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of set the franchise back as time went on. They couldn't recover from that.
Correct.
And so, when you're talking about acquiring somebody like Skubal, one of the great pitchers of this era, and maybe one of the greatest of all time, if he continues to do it for a period of time, what do you give up if you're not the Dodgers?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that sometimes gets overlooked, but teams that like Milwaukee, for example, and there's others that do a really good job. If they make a mistake, it might take them 5 or 10 years to recover from it. Mm-hmm. I just made a mistake. They just find somebody else.
They do.
I mean, Blake Snell. I don't know how much has Blake Snell pitched.
I don't think he pitched an inning this year. I don't know if
maybe one game.
Yeah.
If that was in Milwaukee or any of these other smaller
like if
markets,
the Wiz went down for a whole year, they would be 500 at best. Yeah.
So, it's just, and you can't fault the Dodgers. The Dodgers haven't broken any rules. They've figured out the system.
Right.
But they can afford, when I say afford, certainly financial, but they can afford more mistakes than probably anybody.
Right. Perfect example last year, Tanner Scott, got a big contract. Didn't work out. Okay, well, we'll go get Edwin Diaz because they can do that.
You know, that happens in one of these other cities. They're done.
Yep, they're done. That's a fact. Ned, thank you.
Don't get into it.
Right. I don't want to keep you any longer. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Very gracious with your time again. Thank you. And yeah, maybe we'll have to do this again. Maybe in the future or something. We'll see.
All right, guys.
Hey, Ned, one more thing. I want to give you baseball credit with WBC with Italy. Well done.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a lot of fun to watch.
It was, I've been helped 5 teams get to the World Series, won a couple of them, lost a couple 7s. But this may have been one of the all-time highlights of my career.
Did they at least give you the latte machine? Did they give you the espresso machine as a way to say thank you?
No,
it
but
was
you know
so
what they
awesome.
did? I have some special needs people that are in my family.
Okay.
And MLB came to us before the semifinal game and said that the espresso machine had become a big hit across the country. And so they would auction it off for us.
Oh,
That's awesome.
And Vinny Pasquantino, our captain, and Marco Mazzeri, who's the president of the federation, when I went to them with it, they says, yeah, let's do it. And I says, Vinny, give me a charity. And he goes, no, you pick the charity. You've done all that. You put this group together. You pick the charity. So
awesome.
It helped out. It helped out some people that are very, I mean, not them personally, but people that are, that can struggle with what some of my beloved struggle with.
That's unbelievable. That's such a
Ned,
great.
Thank you again for your time. You know,
You're
and
welcome,
again,
guys.
it's so awesome, and it got me fired up. And you're, you know, just so thank you again. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ned.
Thank you.
All right, guys. There was the great Ned Colletti. How about that?
He's such a great talker.
Man,
I had to throw that in.
It.
That was some of my notes with Italy and then just some of the other things. So
that was really good stuff, man. Man, oh man. I just sit here and just let him talk. I'll just shut up. I'll just ask a question. I'll shut up and just listen.
And I think what's so great is just the history. You know, we see the Giants now, and, you know, hopefully I didn't do it, but, you know, he's been through it, you know,
yes.
And there is hope at the end of the tunnel for the Giants. But I think what he said is he wasn't even sure if the Giants were going to be here. But I thought what makes him great is no egos. Let's work together. Let's have a goal. And I thought one of his crucial things he said early, Eric, first of all, thank you for getting him. That was all you.
You bet.
Is he brought up a great point. He called his old boss. And a lot of people wouldn't do that, saying, hey, Dallas, what do you think of Jeff Kent? He's the hardest worker. That one trade put the Giants back on track. And I think it really shows you try not to make enemies, because baseball, it really comes around. And, you know, he now has a great career. He's been in baseball, you know, over 50 years, you know, the last 10 just talking, you know, now he's with the Sharks, helping them out, build a championship. But you never hold a grudge. And I think that's very important in life, because everything that happens comes around, and serendipity. I know it was a movie, but everything happens for a reason. And I think it's a very powerful word. And I thought when he said that, that was good. And I love the way we ended it, where, you know, the espresso machine. I mean, because when you think of Italy, that was the big thing. They hit a homer, they do a shot of espresso. You know,
yeah, it was awesome.
I've never seen it before. And they made the game fun. And
they did.
As we know, he put it together.
I was rooting for them. I was rooting for Team Italy.
Yep.
So. I mean, you had Wotus, he was on the team, right?
Yep.
And then just the cast of characters they had. I call them cast of characters, but they're hard-nosed players who wanted to go out there and win. And I thought that was fantastic. If we had a little bit more time, I would ask more about it. But I didn't want to exceed. You know,
just a good way to end it. You know, hey, thank you, and you know, I mean, 45 minutes 100%. To him. I mean, it's important. I mean, he's got his other job as a consultant, and now I think it's a little bit more. But you know, hockey starts in literally less than a month, so that's given us time about the Giants and everything. You know, it's pretty awesome. And again, Eric, thanks for getting him, because he really, really, you know, he makes you a fan again. You know,
I know.
And,
he gets you. He re-energizes that energy, right? I mean, that's what I love about talking with some of these guys, where it just helps. It really does. And you kind of reminisce in the past of the glory days. because, the current product, of course, is just a little bit different, of course, than it was. And it's different, when you reminisce about the past compared to what you're feeling in the present. It is different as time goes on. Hell, in another 5 years, they're going to be, remember how shitty that was? But man, we had a good time talking about this and that. I mean, it's just, it's the beauty of baseball, man. It's awesome. I wish Glenn could have been here. He's still not feeling good at all. He might have, as I think I said on the show, I think he might have the corona.
Coronavirus. That sounds right.
It sucks. But again, that was just awesome. I hope you guys got a good kick out of that. Look, I couldn't go to questions again because we only had so much time.
30 minutes. He gave us an extra 15.
He did, right? He did. He stuck around, and look, I don't want to wear up his welcome at all. And again, it was just awesome.
Yeah,
man, that was good. All right.
Lou. All right, should we just maybe go to the box score and we can go? I was there at the game and we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's do the intro. We'll do the. Let's do it.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do a commercial? Maybe have a little
let's do that
and then come back.
Yeah,
Perfect.
guys.
And then we'll go over the box score.
There you go. Exactly, guys. Relax. There we go. Our proud sponsors. Yeah, buddy. Good old Tommy's Mexican restaurant, guys. Go check them out, guys. Great people, great food, and awesome drinks. All right, let's get into the post game.
We're talking Giants every day.
All right, it's post-game show time now. Giants lose in extras 6-3. Lou, you were at the game. I tell you what, before we get to the tail of the tape, I thought Blade Tidwell went 5 2/3. I thought he looked pretty good. What'd you think of the game there? You were there, Lou.
Smallest crowd of the year, which is not shocking because if you listen to our show, we said it would be. Tell you the truth, there was a little confusion when I got there because I thought it was Harry Potter night. But it was Harry Potter night and until there's a cure night. So you had two different things going on. It was a little like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
But I thought the game was well pitched on both ends. I thought the Giants, and I'm going to make a bold prediction. And I know we talked about this the last couple of weeks. I think the Willie Mack Award is going to go to Gilbert. Because
that's fair. Okay.
Every time you think about him, he gets a key walk. He's very underrated. He gets big hits. And when he had the homer today, he had 4 photographers on him, and the team was super, super excited for him. Not because he got the homer, but it's because of Gilbert. And, to tell you the truth, when he first came in, it was more like a rah-rah. I even said, where's his pom-poms? Because he's friends with Tony. But I'm just going to go on a bold prediction because obviously we can't give it to Rise. And
No.
I don't think they're going to give it to Devers. And, if last year you give it to someone who, Adames was okay, I guess. I know he had 30 homers, but they didn't do anything. So I'm just going to go on a limb on that. But opportunity today to get the first win of a series for the 8th straight time. But unfortunately, as Eric said, when the bullpen comes in, you might as well realize it, turn around and run. But Gilbert, of course, got the big hit. And, it was still also very strange weather. The wind, I think, blew a couple balls down. But overall, I thought, hey, I'm not even sure where he fits in the starting, but this is now, as Eric, you said, 2 good starts. You know what? As a 4th or a 5th starter, that's all you ask for.
Hey, yeah, and if he goes any higher than that, I'm right there because right now, Blake Tidwell, out of the young guys, he's the one that I'm liking right now. I'm liking him. Got 6 strikeouts and 5 2/3, only had 1 walk, only gave up 1 run. I mean, my God,
that's the key.
Hey, and that's against a tough lineup. You got Yordan Alvarez, who's freaking going to win the Triple Crown.
Yeah, and MVP,
and he was able to kind of navigate through him, right? And that was huge, man. I like what I saw from Blake Tidwell. So that bodes well for the Giants because the Giants need some damn starting pitching. And to talk about, look at this. You're getting a little love for Gilbert. And I still think to a certain extent right now as it stands, I still think he's a 4th outfielder because he can't hit lefties. You can't have a guy that can't hit lefties. And I don't know, maybe you platoon them. I don't know. I don't know how they'll do that. I don't like platooning because it hurts both players because then both players are affected, whether it's the guy who's going to always face the lefties or the guy that's always going to face the lefties, of course, is not going to get as much time. Yeah. So, I mean, that helps Gilbert because you predominantly face right-handed batters. So I tell you what, man, he had some great defensive plays.
I don't think I've given Gilbert a compliment all year.
Not once. Not once.
A third. So, and
August 10th.
That homer tonight was a shot. Because
that was a big boy.
Right center where the porch sort of goes out to center field is a poke. So, and the way the weather was sort of blowing, I got to give him credit. But my main concern now is I don't understand the Foley situation. He's come off 2 years, a big signing. We waited for him, but
he's not.
I don't know. He's just not float. Now, again, this is something we're going to have to get used to because he did come off Tommy John. That's why we're going to need a stopper next year.
Well, it's even worse, Lou. It was a shoulder surgery. What's he?
Shoulder surgery. Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure what it was. But
no, it's okay.
When you have these, and the other thing is Susak's now out. One of the things I got to talk about is you can't have 2 pass balls and a wild pitch on the Giants right now because they're so thin as it is. And
it's a mash unit.
We give them a walk and then you give a pass ball. I mean, extra innings, they didn't even have to bunt. It's like just let them pitch. And the other thing is, again, it's only the first game of the series, but when you look at it, we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relievers, and we still got 2 more games in this series and this weekend. So it's, the biggest problem is we don't really have a great bullpen, but you're not going to survive using 5 guys every night, 6 guys. And, a lot of these guys are very green coming up. I know they put Tristan Beck back to Sacramento, but, I'm not a big fan of Foley. I know you love Smith. Smith sort of it happens. He's human. But
and the thing is that hit that he gave up was weakly hit. It's just Basabe wasn't in the right spot. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, overthinking, and again, who knows how he's going to come. I thought he might have hurt his shoulder.
The way he was acting,
then he came up and he hit a ball where, he thought he hit it well, but maybe he didn't get it all in with his shoulder. And then Brubaker again, it happens, but again, guys, you know what? It was fun to be out there and it was an exciting game. And that's really right now, that's all we can ask.
What's crazy is
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say,
even though we're 21 games under, at least I can see something in the horizon.
You can see something.
And and you know what? The games are more fun now where, some of these, all I need is some of these young guys to step up and the game's enjoyable. And if you remember, it was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, and then the Giants came back and then they had the lead. But I think the biggest problem, and this might be a continuation of the season, I don't know how many games the Giants have led in the 8th inning by 1 run and they couldn't close the door.
Yeah.
It's got to at least be 15, 16 times. And if you only win half of those, and it's really tough. And then, tomorrow we got Wisenhunt. And, again, these guys have to step up because we need them to step up.
They have, right? It's not necessarily if we would like to. It's a need.
Yeah.
I mean, to a sense, because you got to know what the hell these guys got. You got to know what these guys got. I see a lot of people in the chat. They're talking about McRae. What'd you think? I mean, he was 0-4 today, 2 strikeouts.
So his
defense is good. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he sort of screwed up one play and left. But again, he's still learning the position. But I think he still only has the one hit, that one homer. Am I right? Since he's up there.
Hey, he's batting a cool 81.
So I think here, I'm going to take 81. A look. I think it was that one time he got the homer. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got a bunt hit. He's got a bunt hit in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's got 3 hits on the season. 3 for 37. But the problem is 14 strikeouts. So he's really sort of the same as last year. And I think the problem is the Giants stick with these guys too much. Like, we're hoping he might get better. He might get better. Well, we've already seen it 2 years.
Well, you know what, Lou? Hey, look, and here's the thing. He's got competition coming up behind him. Barracuda, Bo Davidson, Dakota Jordan, right?
Yep.
Parks Harbor. You got guys that are doing something in AAA, and he better be looking. And look, maybe some guys just can't play in the major leagues for whatever reason. It's just the competition may just be that much. Your tool set, so to speak, may not be
You've reached your
major
plateau.
league ready. There you go. Exactly. You're as high as you're going to go, and it just isn't good enough. And sometimes that's just the way it is. It's not a dig on him. It's not nothing. It's just maybe that's just what it is. But we'll see. Look, you're going to see a lot more of him because the Giants just don't have. Well, when Barracuda comes back, then we'll see. It's probably going to wind up being that one kid, Leonard. What was his first name? I can't remember his first name. I don't know if he'll be sticking around when Barracuda comes back. I know Barracuda is supposed to be coming back out soon. Lou, you alluded to this. We haven't got to it yet. How about that? Daniel Susak's been swinging such a good bat. He just came off the IL a few weeks ago. He's starting to get the groove of it. And next thing you know, he fouls the ball off his knee and he literally fractures his kneecap. That is brutal, man. That's absolutely brutal.
That's 9 months, and then rehab.
Is that what they're saying?
When I tore my meniscus, I also cracked my kneecap. And it was like the size of a softball. And they were saying his knee swelled up. It takes that long to get your stuff. I mean, he's going to be. So here's the other.
You got to wait for the swelling to go down before they operate, right?
And then he's going to have to go in. You got to go surgery. And what they do is they go in and they find where it is and they actually shave it so it's level. And then they put a few, and they might, again, I don't know how bad it is, but for mine, they had a couple of screws and then it's just rehab, but it takes a long time to get better. I think the other thing too is the Giants, we know, have major holes, but here's the situation. Susak's going to be out. They had to call a guy up, I think from single A or double A, just because they had nobody else.
They had nobody else.
And
the guys from Stockton, how about that?
Yeah. So I think the key thing with the Giants now is it's just another added hole. We were talking the other night where there's so many holes they got to do. To me, I think, and again, the chat, you could see we probably have 4 major situations we need. We need starting pitching. We need a closer. I think we're going to need another catcher because the problem is we're watching these catchers sort of like make a lot of, I'm not saying mental errors, but they're just not at that caliber. I mean, we all talk about the guy we traded. He couldn't hit, but he was good defensively.
He is good defensively.
These guys are sort of like in the middle of both. and you can't like tonight's game. You have a normal catcher that we could still be playing, and it just adds up, that. And then I just think, the Giants, we have all these guys in AAA. Maybe McCray might not make it. It's okay because we have other stock.
Got other guys,
young outfielders. And I think the problem with the Giants in the past, they stick with these guys too long. You know what I mean? I mean, again, we've seen it 2 years. The other thing is he just might not be a major leaguer. A lot of people. I thought Koss tonight made a great play defensively, but the problem is he can't hit. So you have a guy with speed, and he's good defensively. We already have too many guys that fit that mold.
I know. Well, I'm going to be a defender of Koss, and I'll tell you why. Because last year, when he got his opportunity and he actually played, he was pretty decent. You got to remember, he's only been playing for the last 2-3 weeks, something like that, somewhere around there.
Yeah, of another injury. But if you saw that play, I think it was like the 6th
it was beautiful
because he played far back, dude. I said, why is he playing so far back? If you guys are going to commend Casey Schmidt at third, you got to commend Koss, how good his defense has been. I just want to 100%. Point that out.
So as for Koss, I'll give him a little bit more run because I think he has it in him. I just don't think. Look, the first 3 months of the season, he didn't play. Even being on the bench, how many times did he get in that bat? He pitched. We talked about it.
He was our 26th player, and only in an emergency did he ever come up.
Yeah, break glass in case of emergency. That's all it was. It was dumb. So I'm not
why is he even on the team?
Yeah, exactly.
Give him a chance, Tony, because remember, Tony V never played the bench the first.
He never did.
Never.
Yeah.
Never pinch hit. Nothing.
Exactly. All right. Hey, Justin, let me get to your super chat. He donated as well. Ned was on $2. I'm enjoying this conversation. Hats off to you. Hey, thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Again, if you guys weren't here, watch the replay once we finish the live stream. Ned Colletti joined us for about 45 minutes. Awesome, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate him giving us an extra 15 minutes. It's just,
dude, it was awesome.
And it made the whole show. I mean, I don't mind coming here, but I literally said, all right, even though the Giants were up 3-2, I go, relievers, I'm going to make sure I'm here at 9:30 so I don't let Eric down because of who he had coming on. I mean, Ned's a guy that gets you excited to do this podcast.
He does.
Nothing wrong with the chat, but it's just sort of a bonus. We worked hard. We
something
sort of
extra.
Needed it, and we got it.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Look, come on, man. It's a great baseball conversation. That's what you guys understand, right? I like talking baseball. I like having conversations with people who enjoy the game, who've been a part of the game, and if I could do that, I will do what I can to try to get it done. And again, it's not for the show. It's not for bragging rights. It's to have a baseball conversation. End of story. That's where it ends. That's all I care about, man. It's if I could share it with other people, I will share it with other people. That's why, Lou, I'm glad that you were on here with me to be able to ask Ned some questions. I wish Glenn was here too, but I understand he's just not feeling up to it. So it kind of sucks that he wasn't here. But I love talking baseball, man. That's what it's all about.
And I think the great thing is he didn't really badmouth the Giants now. He talked about the history.
No. The history.
He really talked, hey, again, I wanted to bring a few things up because I knew when he went to LA, they hired him because they were a disaster.
They were, they were a mess.
They look at San Francisco. And the other thing, too, about his working relationship, I thought was key. They always
100%.
walked at lunch. They talked every day. And again, maybe a lot of the chat weren't around. The Giants were sort of the laughing stock in the 70s. Okay, we weren't good. And, we had people that wanted to make Candlestick our advantage instead of everyone complaining. He was talking about fans, 7,000. The Giants in the 80s until 89 did not, I think only 1 year drew 1 million. They averaged like 700. Remember, there's 81 games.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? And they did not draw a million
81 home games. Yeah.
So it just tells you how bad it was. I actually was at the smallest crowd ever against the San Diego Padres, the Giants, 716.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my seats. It wasn't like I bought tickets and went. I was in my season tickets. That's how bad it was.
That's
but
incredible.
I also think what's good is, he brought up just such great things. And the other thing, not only baseball, but in life, try not to hold grudges. I know a lot of us probably have had problems either with a boss or maybe with a female being married. You never know when you might need that favor from that person. It's sort of weird how the man upstairs does that,
Yeah.
And I think you just brought up a great point. And I think, look how happy he is that he took a chance and he's got so many friends in the business. Look what the Giants, even though he went to LA, worked for the enemy, he had such a great working relationship. They wanted him to be there with Jeff Kent.
Yeah. How about that?
He didn't talk about the Dodgers sending him. It was all about the Giants family, the Giants community. So
there's that mutual respect that he was talking about.
Yeah.
And when you have that mutual respect, it gets you far in life. That's a fact. Don't mean to be preaching or anything, but that's just what it is. What's up, TG? What's up, dude? But you know what? Yeah, I think I don't think we have to do tail to tape, did we? Nah, we probably don't.
We didn't get to it. But Giants, again, they lose 6-3 in extra innings, another extra innings loss.
Yeah.
But, and again, it's getting tough now because, when you look at this schedule, me and Eric talked about this last night. It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard.
Because except for Colorado, a lot of these teams, they need these wins. Houston is battling for the AL West. You had Detroit, that's only a game back in the wild card. So you knew it wasn't going to be easy over the weekend, and it's sort of like what I said, probably I'd say in April. When Webb loses, it's almost like 2 losses because who after him, But, I think most important, guys, chat, we're so glad we could bring this to you. We're so glad you're still with us. And it's all because of Eric that, we got yes. But most importantly, guys, this is why we do it. Even though the Giants lost, this was such an awesome show because we got to talk about baseball. And, me, Eric, and Glenn, we don't do it for the money. Okay, we do it because we love the sport. We love talking about it. We might give people crap, right? But Sardal, you weren't on this show tonight. You missed the best one of the year. Where were you? Robert Rothberg, where were you? So it's one of those things where we're just here to have fun. There's so many problems out in the world. Us being in San Francisco, there's so many problems. Eric has a problem because the AC might not be working. It's 102 degrees. San Francisco,
I'm good to go.
Pure overcast in the mornings. It's freezing. But I just think us having fun, that's what it's all about. And a show like tonight, it's all worth it.
Hey, there's Dom, man. He had a great tribute yesterday. If you go check out Dom Peralta on Twitter, guys, he had a nice tribute to Mike Krukow. He had made some artwork for him back when Krukow was diagnosed with his illness. He put together a great poster commemorating Krukow, and he did it again. He's kind of re-releasing it for his retirement. So, Dom, good on you, man. Way to go, dude. Way to go. Hey, Matthew says, you guys have made this season bearable. W. Matthew.
And in that, is that Dodger Stadium? Is he a Dodger fan? That looks like Dodger Stadium in his photo.
Ooh.
That's definitely not Oracle.
Matthew, what stadium is that? I can't tell. It might be because I see the blue, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What stadium is that avatar in, Matthew? Let's see. Taco Town. Hey, appreciate it, man. Thank you. The World Baseball Classic. It was in Arizona. Arizona World Baseball. That's awesome. Okay.
I'm so glad we brought that up.
It's when Trout hit the home run.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Right on, Matthew. Cool. Lou, let's get the hell out of here. Guys, tomorrow, another 6:45 start, right? Yep, 6:45. Hunter Brown versus Carson Wisenhunt. I don't know how that one's going to go, Lou. I don't know how that one's going to pan out.
I'm going to have to listen to the morning show to find out.
There you go. Hey, I like what you think. All right, guys, be good. Enjoy the rest of your night. And we'll be back here, first in the morning. And then as far as live on the post game, we'll be back here right around 9:30 or so. would have gone on a little bit earlier, but hey, it's all good, man. We having a game
at 9:30. That's fine. And
I wanted to set the time,
and actually ended. The game ended like at 9:26.
Something like that.
The
Yeah.
Giants gave up 3 runs, so it just worked out perfect.
So yeah, I was with today's show. It didn't matter whether the Giants are still playing or not. We were going on at 9. I'm not going to sit there and try to keep pushing it out, depending on when the Giants finish the game. I wasn't doing that. So, all right, guys. See you guys tomorrow night. Be good, and we'll see you. See ya.
Again.
You've been watching Giant Sports Talk Live with Eric and Glenn, a Northern Lights Entertainment Broadcasting production.